And we won't do that cringy conversation about what your name is. We already did that. We're not going to revisit it. All right,
Yeah, I'm not
Twit.
really sure what the pacing of when I should say things is.
I mean, I will not dominate the conversation. I want this to actually be a conversation. I'll let you know when Twitch is online. Twitter and YouTube are on right now.
Dino should tell me as well, right?
I think I've had issues with Twitch in the past where it only alerts you every 4 hours, so it may not alert
Uh,
this quickly. It might say they must still be online from
which is
previously.
fine. Interestingly, there are like four people with Dark Spirit in their name, and you have the least followers.
Well, thanks.
Yeah, I thought you would enjoy hearing that.
Okay, well, we are online. Welcome to anyone watching. I certainly hope you can hear me now. I'm a dark spirit. Who are you? Oh,
Can you hear me?
uh, I can, yes.
Okay. I am Sully.
Okay. Well, that's us. Um, we're here today to kind of just put our feelers out and see what like a podcast style thing would look like for us. We tend to talk about Path of Exile a lot together, and thought it might be nice to have that conversation with some other interested people. So if you're watching, thank you. Welcome to the inaugural podcast thing. Maybe this is the only one. Maybe there's one every week. Who knows?
Probably not every week.
Probably not every week. Yeah, that's probably true. There might be a couple,
Yeah,
but
definitely.
we just thought, like, why not, right? Why not? So before we really get started, why don't you just talk for a minute or two about like what you've been up to recently?
Sure. So, I guess with Path of Exile, I have not really played Scourge. I really hated it. And I have not really played much Path of Exile since Ritual, but I have been playing since
Bloodlines,
Rampage.
Rampage.
Rampage, yeah.
Yeah.
So I have not played pre-Forsaken Masters, but I've played since the Forsaken Masters existed, which is longer than a lot of people. Um, and then Scourge, I just did not like the mechanic, and I did not like the state of character progression in the game or the Atlas system. So then instead, I have been playing a bunch of other games. Mass Effect I've been playing on PC. I got the Legendary Edition, so I've
Ooh.
been playing through the first one. Once I beat that, I'll move on.
How do you
And
like
I've
it
been
so
playing
far?
a game called Sakuna of Rice and Ruin on my Switch, which is a um, side-scrolling uh, platforming type fighting game. I don't know, the mechanics are pretty basic, but you level up via a farming simulator during your downtime, which has really chill vibes, and I've been enjoying a lot.
Hmm. I actually own Sakuna.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Have you played it for an hour and a half like most of your games?
Slightly more than an hour and a half, but you've probably already played it longer than me.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm sure.
I'm like the it goes by like exploration level. I think my exploration
Yeah.
level is like 10 or something like that.
Oh, yeah, mine's like 130.
Yeah, mine is not very high. Okay, so Mass Effect and Sakuna. Is there anything else that you've been doing beyond gaming?
Yeah, I have been learning programming, and my wife and I are looking for a house, trying to decide if we're staying in the area or moving. Um, Lots of stuff like that. Uh, yeah,
Cool.
pretty much covers it.
So there's some activity going on in your life.
Yep.
Well, I kind of in a similar space. I was not really a big fan of Scourge. I found it way too rippy, and I found scourging items to just feel like garbage. I really, really tried to enjoy that mechanic, but I'd be like, okay, let's, try to get some cool Krangle, and just garbage every time. Every time. And if it wasn't garbage, it was so unimpactful that you're like, okay, cool. Like, I have 8 life regen now. Hooray. Like, it was not great. Instead, I've actually over the weekend, I've been playing a ton of Grim Dawn. Trying to scratch that ARPG itch. And beyond that, I've kind of just been doing a lot of nothing. Work has been really draining every week, so if I'm not just wasting time after work doing nothing, I'm wasting time playing a video game. Yeah, a lot of Grim Dawn. So I don't know if you've ever even heard of it, but I've been getting into the Atelier series, which is this super kind of cringy Japanese RPG series. But what's awesome about it is it does have this really intricate crafting system, and that is the hook for me. I am such a sucker for a good crafting system. One of the reasons I love Path of Exile, and getting past the super cringy, super Japanese moments in the game, I've found myself really enjoying a number of those games. So I have a trilogy on the Switch that I'm playing through right now. I'm on the second game out of the 3, and that's kind of what I do if I want to just like sit on the couch. I'll play my Switch and play those. Pretty great series of games, but I know everyone who hears this is judging me for it.
I feel like you have a much higher tolerance for weeb stuff than I do.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there does come a point where it's even too much for me, but Atelier does not quite get there. There have been some times where I do have to like set it down for a moment and just say like, wow, that was a lot.
Yeah.
Well, okay.
See, I got to too much when I was trying to play Tales.
Oh, wow. Tales is like really tame on the cringe weeb scale for sure.
The main character is like unnecessarily edgelord, and then the princess is just like painful.
Oh, is that the one with Yuri?
Yeah, Tales of Vesperia.
And
that's supposed to be like one of the games where the characters are the most popular, so like pretty sold on not trying the rest of that series.
Yeah. In the Tales series, every character is a trope. Like, every character is cliche, right? You know, your old grizzled war veteran is 28 years old.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, the roster tends to be a bunch of, 15-year-old kids, and then inevitably there's a child who's, 4 that has some special power. I don't know. It's very, very tropey, for sure. Yeah.
Great.
Okay, well, enough about that. Let's actually dive into what we're here for. Let's talk about Path of Exile. So, let's do a little spoiler. Overall feelings on Siege of the Atlas and Arch Nemesis. Well, let's do those separately. Overall feelings on Siege of the Atlas, thumbs up or thumbs down? I am very much thumbs up. And then Arch Nemesis, thumbs up or thumbs down?
Right in the middle.
I'm pretty in the middle as well. I realize that they even said it's a kind of filler lead, right?
It's something to do.
Yeah. This endgame rework was really what they were pushing out. I will say one thing about Arch Nemesis and one thing about the direction of the game as a whole. I love anything that gives us agency over what we're doing, and Arch Nemesis, I think, is a great system for that. If you want to, you can just be using your 4, tier 1, what are we calling them? I want to say essences, but they're not actually essences.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember what they're called.
Whatever they're called.
Markers.
Sure.
No, that's Rogue Harbor.
It probably has it in the patch notes.
Oh yeah.
I suppose I could look at that, but regardless, yeah, I love that as a system.
I feel like they did a good job of thinking about players understanding the league, but as far as actually playing the league, I feel like it's going to feel a lot like Metamorph, right? You just fight one big thing,
Mm-hmm.
and Metamorph was whatever for me.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I generally do enjoy leagues that do require us to focus a little bit more on single target. Clear speed.
It also looks like it will have much better visual clarity than black on black with black ground effects that one shot you.
Yeah, it's like yellow on darker colors is kind of the theme. Yeah, I agree there. And really, how much visual clarity do you... Well, I mean, I guess Metamorph was one monster and that had no visual clarity, but I feel like generally speaking, when you are only fighting one thing at a time, visual clarity, it certainly can become an issue, but it's a lot better when there's only one monster fighting you than when there's 1,000 monsters fighting you.
Tell that to Cyrus.
That's not Cyrus's fault. There's just too many things on the ground, I think. Maybe it is his fault then. Okay, yeah. So why don't we start off talking about the content that I will never engage in Siege of Atlas. That pinnacle, aspirational, endgame content.
Great.
We had Elder, then we have Maven, and now we have the Searing Exarch and the Eater of Worlds, who I will probably get to and die against repeatedly. So how do you feel about that being the push? How do you feel about, the expansion is expanding the end game?
I mean, I love endgame. Obviously, chat wouldn't know that, but I'm all about endgame. And having it feel like there is a progression that I can make myself to get there, right? I loved Harvest because I'm the kind of player who gets enough time in the game where Harvest just gets me to very good items, right? I'm not a player who can immediately get to perfect items via Harvest. I never did the TFT stuff. I guess I did do TFT at the very end after I'd finished doing everything by myself, right? I had cleared, I don't even remember what it's called, the Feared. Is that the one where it's all four?
Yeah.
Big bosses at the same time. I did the Feared by myself, and then I did TFT just to finish some of my items because I wanted Chaos Res on some stuff, but I had killed the Feared with Cheula without the Chaos Res, so it was just to cap it for fun.
Sure.
So that's the kind of level of content that I like and progression to that. So I'm really excited. I find that moving away from this same kind of tired formula of 4 guardians and then a big boss, I'm excited to get away from that. I like that there's 2 at a time and then you can focus on which one you're going to do. I do feel like that's going to be weird with Maven. I liked that you could kind of be doing Maven and other things at the same time. So I kind of feel like at this point I'm only going to do Maven for her special invitations, right? I'll witness Breach Lords, I'll witness Guardians, and that sort of a thing where you weren't going to put red or blue on it anyway. But that's fine. And having any pinnacle boss not being Cyrus is pretty sweet, even though Cyrus has probably the best drop pool out of any boss that we've ever seen.
Yeah.
Especially in SSF, if you get anything from Cyrus, it's good, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he's the only boss where all of his drops, at least for the first time, right? Once you get your 8th Crown of the Inward Eye, you're sort of okay, do I just start veiling these or what?
Yeah, I like having multiple copies, but I do a lot more lab than you do.
Sure, I guess having a couple for lab is great, and it is a great helm to enchant. I actually used it last league and found it really, really strong. Yeah, so I kind of agree with you on pretty much all counts. I'm glad to get rid of the whole fragment kind of fight. I like that. I like that it's something that you can choose to do it on every map, as opposed to the Conquerors, where it felt like, you have to go into a map in a region that they don't exist in and kind of chance into them. And chances seemed pretty good. It's not like it took terribly long to see them, but you had to do some amount of content without them before you could do content with them. And I do really like that it looks like you're just going to be able to add them to every map, right? You can just do it once you start seeing them.
Yeah, I believe that is the case.
And it's
there will possibly be like thresholds where you can't, right? Like, and I feel like they may have said that you have to see something on your atlas, but I don't really remember.
Yeah, what I remember them saying is you can't start doing that until mid-tier maps when you first encounter them, but once you encounter them, then Maven is like, yo, my dude.
Kill these people. Yeah. I love it when you kill stuff.
Take care of my little problem for me.
Yeah.
I'll give you an awakened gem.
I do feel like it's almost like feels painfully obvious that in a league or two there's going to be an Uber pinnacle where you fight both of them, right? Like,
yeah.
Or like where you can witness their sub bosses and then there's a Maven fight. Like a Maven Arena fight with the two mini bosses, and then the next league, then they'll do the double fight. I mean, we'll see when we get into the actual fights, right? They might be too complicated to combine, like Shaper and Elder could, but
well, I mean,
how do you feel about never getting to use more than 2 sextants in your life?
Because I'll
since
only
you've never killed Uber Elder or Maven.
Yeah, that is true. I
have
only ever killed Uber Elder once, and I have never killed Maven.
Yeah. When did you kill Uber Elder?
Long time ago, with some, I don't know. I don't even remember what build it was. I remember it was something that could like one-shot the portals. But yeah, I've killed Uber Elder exactly once. And again, it was a very, very long time ago. And I have not killed Maven. I fought Maven and ripped 6 portals, and I was like, well, I'm just going to sell my writs now. Like,
They're expensive.
Yeah. Ripping, I think at the time, it was like a little over an Exalt, like 1.3x or something like that. And I was like, I just threw away an Exalt and and a half a level. So.
Yeah, I had Maven on farm in Ritual, but like Maven's drops are such garbage that like you either get the orb or you lose money.
Oh, yeah. I never felt bad about not fighting Maven and killing her. It is what it is. I mean, I know what kind of player I am, and I know where my skill level is, and I know how I like to play the game. I don't want to go on YouTube and watch Maven mechanic fights for 45 minutes before I go into it. That's not fun for me.
I don't do that either.
I YOLO'd into it, I died, and then I was like, well, the rewards suck, so I'm not doing this again.
Yeah, I ripped a few sets before I got my first kill.
Yeah. I do like that it looks, for the most part, they're buffing most of her drops, and they're taking that awakened gem pool and giving it to her. So I do think Maven will at least feel better to engage with. I'm a little sad that the helm. The helm is really interesting, but that did not get a buff. And the belt,
Viridi's Veil.
Yeah, it didn't get a buff.
It's like the only thing that people use. That didn't need a buff.
People occasionally use it. Yes, I will say it didn't necessarily need a buff. I would have liked to see something.
You only say that because we play softcore. That thing is so good in hardcore when it shuts off crits.
Oh yeah, I suppose that's true. And then the belts just got a +1 max charge buff, which
pretty big.
It's nice for sure.
I think that the red one might be usable.
Is that the triple damage?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think the belt slot does have a lot of competition. I mean, there are some good belts. I don't know if you've heard of them.
Yeah, but like, I mean, comparing a pinnacle boss drop to a headhunter or a mage blood is kind of dumb.
I know. I'm being a little disingenuous. just saying that there are some good belts that exist.
Yeah. Yeah, none of those are going to exist on like a best build in the game kind of a build. That is for sure.
Yeah. Any... Let me see what I got here. Anything else you want to say about the pinnacle bosses before we move on and talk about itemization?
The only thing that I want to say is that I am really excited for the Kitten Cat Noodle video that will come out about how the fire guy has like basically the exact innocence symbol, because I'm 90% sure that she said something about that in one of her videos, and I'm real excited for that because her lore videos are great.
Yeah. Yeah, I have already seen some of the like conspiracy theory posts about how that symbol is linked to innocence. So it makes me wonder, like, maybe sin and innocence are actually more of those beings.
Yeah,
Like maybe
I've
they
seen
came...
speculation that like maybe that's one of the fathers, like their father, who's not referenced in the Sin and Innocence lore in game currently,
Mhm.
um, and that it could be an Eldritch plus, you know, God or
Yeah.
something combination.
Yeah. Well, because those eldritch beings are clearly pretty beefy, right? Like they've got superhuman abilities, and so it would make sense in a world where everyone is just a normal human that something eldritch would definitely be worshipped as a god.
Hmm.
Yeah, I am definitely excited to hear some of that lore, and I ever since Maven came out and they kind of said like the envoy, when the envoy, I think it was last League. Remember when the envoy would have these massive monologues, and then it seemed like last League you'd encounter him, and every single time he would just say, "They are coming," and I was like, "Okay, this is like some seriously cool foreshadowing." And so
I didn't
really...
make it to maps last league, so I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I'm really interested to see if that's playing a bigger role. I mean, I know that Chris has said in the past that he's got like some 20-year vision of Path of Exile. The problem is like, where do you even go from where we're at? Like, we've killed all of the gods and absorbed
Yeah,
their
but like,
powers.
okay, if you think about the gods as being baby children of the Eldritch being, which would tie in really well if you're saying that Sin and Innocence are this guy's kid, then like that gives you a perfect progression of like now you have to fight up the pantheon of these Eldritch beings, and like we haven't even gone to like Beyond World to see if there's like, you know, maybe Uber Cheula is like, you know, just a captain in their army or something, right? We don't know. There's no lore in the world to tell us what the scaling actually is, right? Only Harbinger we know that we've kind of hit the top.
Yeah. Yeah, I suppose. I mean, we could certainly start going to other places, and with the Atlas being what it is, who knows? But
And honestly, in PoE2, they could just be like, yeah, none of that's canon anymore. We're just going to start over. Like,
yeah. There's a parallel
the
Atlas.
from zero.
Yeah. Well, and I guess that would actually make a lot of sense, right? The whole idea is that there are all of these parallel worlds that you can gaze into, and yeah, who knows what they're going to do in PoE2. They've said that the storylines are going to be totally separate and lead to a shared endgame. So, yeah. I don't think that's worth speculating on because I'm an idiot, and I'll just wait. I'll wait for them to tell me what's going on with that.
Yeah.
Okay,
for sure.
So let's talk about, speaking of pinnacle bosses, let's talk about some of those changes to end game itemization. First thing I want to talk about, what are your thoughts on those Eldritch implicits?
Yeah, that seems sick. I really like basically every currency item that they introduced. I think that it works really well with the crafting systems that already exist in the game.
Oh,
and
so
I really like...
You're talking beyond the implicit orbs now. You're talking about the chaos orbs too?
I'm talking about everything.
Okay.
All of the orbs that they created work really well with all of the crafting systems that we already have, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I'm currently thinking about veiled chaos orbs and essences and how well both of those things work with those implicits, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I always felt like unless you had a very specific plan, it always felt really bad to take a warlord exalt or a hunter exalt and slam it on an item, right? It was
Mm-hmm.
just like, okay, now that I did that, I'm gonna scour it and transmute it and start alt spamming because I only did this because it was cheaper than buying the base.
Yeah.
Right? Like that was the only reason why I ever used those orbs. Um, outside of Harvest, which doesn't exist anymore in
Yeah.
its former state. So I think that they did a really smart thing with that. And I think that it gives so much more diversity to your itemization, right? Like now you have to decide, well, do I want an astral plate or do I want that's like, got hunter on it, or do I want to go with a really high armor or evasion chest or a Vol Regalia and then get to add implicits to it, right? Like, because before now, it was just like, oh, let's get those astral plates for every single build as long as we have enough strength, right? It was just like, uh, but especially now that they've made armor and evasion more relevant, I think that these implicits, and it didn't seem like the difference between tier 1 and tier 6 was that big, right? Like, it was like a 50% boost. Um, which means that, like, you and I will probably never have a tier 6 implicit, right?
Oh, yeah.
Right? Well, like maybe have a tier 4 at some point.
You
But
know,
like,
that actually reminds me, really quick interjection. I wonder how
oh,
this is going to work with splitting items. If you split an item, will
well,
it keep its implicits?
no, you can't split influenced items or synthesis items.
Does it get the little, because at least in the trailer, the items they showed didn't have the little tags on either side of the name.
They are a completely different base type. They covered it in the video. You can't chance them into uniques
Okay,
either.
yes, I did hear
So,
that. So it does count as
and
like
it
an
does it
influence
does
type.
change the art on it, right?
Yeah. Okay.
The art
All right.
gets that glow. So I can't, if you can split it next league you will not, right?
Sure.
That is not what they want, and if it happens it's a bug. And that's fine because it's a free game and there are bugs that someone's going to exploit,
Of
and
course. Every league.
if you get banned then you kind of deserve it.
Yeah. Well, there's going to be some big bug this league. Yeah. Right. Like there's going to be.
Yeah, with the end game there has to
Yeah.
be.
There's going to be some loophole. Yeah. Yeah, I agree that we will probably not be seeing a tier 6, but it'll be really cool, especially if they make even the tier 1s relatively common. They did say that even at tier 1, that's a lot of the build defining ones.
Mm-hmm.
So even like some of the stuff that they were showing, um, if I also really like that they're showing the radius for things,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Um,
Hopefully that is a
but there might be
sign of
some
future plans.
yeah, there might be some good stuff there
Mm-hmm.
in terms of uh, not necessarily build defining or build enabling, but just really nice quality of lifestyle things. Um, adding some fire damage to spells, Chris seems to think that that's like really good. Like, oh, you wouldn't want to put a helm with 12 to 31 fire damage to spells on a low level character. Like that doesn't impact anything. Um, so I'll be interested
Yeah.
to see what those tiers actually get up to for some of those things, and I really don't want to like PoEDB data mine it. I want it to feel a little bit more organic.
Yeah.
I'm just hoping that they are common enough drops where it's something that I feel like I get to engage in. I mean, if even the tier 1 things wind up being super rare and they cost 30 chaos, I don't know how many I'm going to realistically use.
Yeah. I guess that's a good point. Are you going trade league or self-found this league?
I've been grappling with that. I kind of feel like I have to go trade league. If I really want to enjoy the content that they're adding to the game, I've got to go trade. I mean, all of these end game bosses are going to have their own unique drop pools. And not only that, not only the Searing Exarch and the Eater of Worlds, but the Black Star and the Infinite Hunger, right? Those sub-bosses. There's 4 new bosses. Presumably each is going to have 3 or 4 uniques that are going to drop. I mean, that's a lot of stuff.
I just feel like if your concern is feeling bad engaging with them if they're 30 chaos, doesn't Self-Found make that a lot more pleasant?
Self-Found makes it more pleasant, but then I don't find any because they're worth 30 chaos.
Right? I feel like if they're worth 30 chaos, it's because people want one particular mod, and so they spam for it.
Yeah, that could be. I guess to me, it's just like it depends on how often they drop. Like if you're just able to go into a map and, the altars, like if there's the altar that makes the map boss drop Eldritch Currency, if that happens a lot, like if that's a common altar to come across, then yeah, that probably won't feel nearly as bad. It also depends, what's the weighting on Eldritch Currency? I mean, is the Eldritch Chaos Orb like the most common one, or is it the one that grants implicits?
I got the impression that all of the red/blue, the Chaos, the Exalt, and the Annul were all rarer than base Exalts.
Okay, that's probably true. I do remember Chris saying that they were pretty dang rare. I mean, they're also just insane. They're really, really good.
I wish that they weren't more rare than Exalts, though. I wish that they were the same rarity as Exalts.
Well, they might be more rare in that, like, you'll see, 3 Exalts for every 2 of those that you see. And there are a lot of things that are rarer than Exalts that just don't matter. I mean, aren't, like, Annuls practically on the same rarity tier as Exalts?
Yeah.
And, gosh, like, I don't know, last league or 2 leagues ago, Annuls were a Chaos.
Yeah, but like a targeted Annul, even 50% targeted is more than twice as good.
Oh, for sure.
Right? Like,
I'm not saying that like the Eldritch Annul is going to be bad. It's going to be great. All of those Eldritch Currency items are going to be great. I'm
I just
definitely
want the Chaos Orb.
What?
I just want the Eldritch Chaos.
Oh yeah,
That's all that I want.
I think that's the one that enables the most interesting things. There is a lot going on there for sure. Anything that lets you like lock prefixes and reroll suffixes is like very, very strong for sure.
And they're like kind of hard gated at 3x each, right? They can't really exceed that because then you can just benchcraft it for cheaper.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely true. So my guess is that in terms of actual drop rarity, they will be more common than that. I mean, they've got to be.
Fingers crossed.
If it's not, that they'll hotfix. They better hotfix it. Or yeah, it'll just be the kind of thing where people are like, I guess I'll just throw 3 Exalts on this item. Like, this currency item is totally pointless.
Yeah. I don't know. We'll see. Like, I feel like with where Harvest is at currently, they are perfectly fine with saying, all right, semi-deterministic crafting exists, but not for you, scrubs. Like,
yeah, that's always really feel bad. I mean, I wish that newer players could still craft good items without like memorizing these esoteric systems.
Yeah, I feel like June safe houses with the tiny trials are so close to being what they should do as like a campaign thing.
Yeah.
Like, just to give people that currency that they need to use themselves and like engage with it, because like, you hear stories about someone like picks up a mirror of Kalandra and is like, what does this do? And they like mirror their white item because they're new and they have no idea. There's like, oh, it made a copy. Neat.
Yeah.
I'll do better with the next one.
Yeah. Yeah, once the second one drops, maybe I'll use it on a rare.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So with itemization, should we talk about some of those uniques?
Sure.
They all look ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's basically all that there is for me.
So, I guess, I, uh, which ones have they even shown?
Well, there's the new jewels, the new like Watcher's Eye chase thing.
Yep.
There's the amulet that gives +1 to all skill gems, not
Yep.
active skill gems,
Yep.
not support skill gems, and it gives like up to almost 20 quality
Yep.
with alt gems. That seems ridiculous. That's like I don't know.
Yeah.
That seems like it might get nerfed. Because that seems
I don't
like the
know,
best
like,
item I've ever seen for a caster.
but don't forget, plus one gems is now core mod pool on amulets.
Yeah, but nothing else in the game lets you give all of your gems quality. The +1
Oh,
is
sure.
whatever.
Okay, so
The
you're
quality is what makes that insane. Plus, it gives reservation efficiency.
a little bit,
So,
yeah.
like, you're already dealing with, like. Plus, it gives +1 all gems.
Hmm.
So, you know, typically you would be like, okay, well, it's only half as good for a spellcaster as a rare because you can get +1 active, uh, +1 all spell, and then +1 lightning or whatever it is. Um, but now you can just use an empower, and the empower is also getting +1.
Yeah, that's true. I was
Uh,
just thinking about that. It gives plus
and
one to your active and +1 to your empower.
and if you're playing an Orabot, you can get +1 to all of your enlightens.
Yeah,
That's pretty gross.
yeah.
And then with the jewel, uh, Scion Orabot now get to take champions, Scion Champion, Scion Guardian, and Scion Necromancer.
Yeah.
So that's.
I mean, I think those jewels are going to be. We might as well pretend they don't exist. Like you and I.
So I would agree, but I actually went through all of the Ascendancy nodes, just all of them. And I feel like if you are choosing the right Ascendancy, you'll probably have a decent chance at getting something. Like, if you pick a duelist, almost any Slayer node is good on any duelist, right?
Oh, I'm not saying that it's bad. I'm saying
No, no,
that
no, I know,
they're
but like,
going to be so expensive.
but the thing is that if you're playing a duelist, you want fortitude, right? Every single duelist that exists wants fortify. There is nothing that competes. There's nothing that comes close unless you're going full glass cannon. One, even if you're a champion, you want that so you don't have to take the other node in between, right? Like then you can take all damage nodes.
Sure, sure.
Every single duelist wants that node specifically. So then maybe you can pick up the Gladiator's Challenger charges for pretty cheap, or bleed explosions, or anything from Slayer, right? That kind of stuff. And then if you're a Necromancer, right, uh, you probably always want Profane Bloom, or if you're any witch, you want Profane Bloom, unless you're a Golemancer, in which case you always want Unnatural Strength. So then all of the Shaper of Flames, Shaper of Winter, I mean, Flames will probably be pretty expensive, but like Winter, who's going to be paying out the ass for that, right? Like, Shaper of Winter is super good if you're playing a cold caster on an occultist, right? Especially if you're doing cold dots and then it gets your bone chill ridiculous, right? Like I think that there is a lot of room to find budget versions similar to Watcher's Eyes, right? Like Watcher's Eyes are super rare and the super good ones are insanely expensive, but you know, if you're running Purity of Elements and you need some Chaos Res, you can get a Chaos Res Purity of Elements Watcher's Eye for like 50 chaos at the end of the
Unexalt.
league.
Yeah,
And
it's just to me like yes, players who aren't actually able to clear that content can just pay for it if they're willing to compromise on like the power level of what they're getting.
hmm,
But I still think like you're talking about a Watcher's Eye that gives you what, like 40 chaos res or something like that?
Yep.
Now we're comparing that to something that literally gives you fortify, or something that, like, not, because you're right, I do think that one is going to be really expensive, but like the ascendancy nodes are just, they're such a far cry in terms of power level above an extra 30 chaos res.
Yeah, but like even if you're like min-maxing, you can get a one stat Watcher's Eye for almost any build for relatively cheap, right? If you're just like, you know what, I want to get some fire penetration, so I'm going to get the anger fire penetration one, and you want one stat, that's doable, right? So like, for example, something that would be really good for most people would be just straight up onslaught from Raider if you're playing a Pathfinder or a Deadeye. But, you know, if you're talking about trade league juicers who are buying the expensive stuff, they already have that from their boots. They don't need Tailwind from Deadeye. They don't need Onslaught from that. They don't care about phasing. They already have spell suppression capped.
Mm-hmm.
So all of those things, which are insane, right? Those are all really, really good, are just like not even that expensive. I also think that Scion, like almost any node is pretty good. If you're playing a Juggernaut or a Berserker, almost anything from Chieftain is really good.
Bear in mind, I think they did say something about Scion. It might not be exactly what is on that Scion notable, because they said that the Scion has them, but they're modified or something like that.
I thought that the Scion ones were just modified because the Scion is so different than the other Ascendancies, but you could be right.
Yeah, I suppose we'll see, right?
I'm also guessing that you can't like get a jewel that gives you Assassin if you're already taking Saboteur, right? You can't get two Shadow ones.
If you're an Ascendant.
Right.
Yeah, that's based on the way the jewels are worded, unless the Scion one is templated differently, I would think you could.
Yeah. Guess we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. Again, for me, super cool item, but as soon as I really thought about how strong it was going to be and how interesting it was going to be, I was like, they're going to be 4 exalts each. Like, why even bother?
So, that's nothing. I buy 2-stat Watcher's Eyes all the time when I'm juicing.
And I guess it also depends on how much I play too, and if I actually get lucky with drops for once. And if I'm really...
You want to talk about for once when you dropped a Headhunter?
Okay, that one time I dropped a Headhunter. Yeah, that one time.
That build was worth more than any build that I've ever played, and you always call me lucky. You had like a 40 Exalt bow and a Headhunter and...
Yeah, I don't even know how I got that bow.
Because you dropped like 3 Doctors too.
Yeah.
Like one of each Headhunter card as well.
Yeah. I mean, that was a lucky league for me, for sure. What was that? Was that Ritual?
Yeah, it must have been,
I think it was Ritual. Was it Ultimatum? I don't...
Did I play that much in Ultimatum? Because I know I made that Aurobot to support you.
Yeah.
And I don't think that I...
We stood in circles a lot while I killed rares. It was Ritual or Ultimatum.
I feel like it was Ritual because I remember you had a Headhunter and I still played longer than you. And I had a higher level character.
Yeah.
And
okay.
My Trapper was the only one.
Getting back to itemization while we got off track.
Still about items. Ish.
So, how do you feel about the modification to influenced items, generally speaking? Like, they're moving some things out of Conquer Influence, namely the plus gems. I think there were a couple of other things they talked about that were moving out of Influence into the core mod pool.
Yeah, max res on shields.
Yeah. And then, so, like, there will be these Eldritch items with implicits, and then those can't be Conquer Influence items.
Right.
So, how do you feel about that kind of paradigm? I sort of feel like with conquerors sort of falling by the wayside, and yes, you can engage with them if you want to. I sort of feel like no one's going to touch them, except for the people that are purposely crafting for one thing. Like, I have found myself in the past just like using an influenced item that winds up having like a relatively useful influence mod on it. I mean, I've used random like +2 fire boots for like a fire trap or something like that. I don't think I'm going to be doing stuff like that anymore.
Yeah, so like I think that the whole intent is to replace that exactly, right? Like these implicits are meant for you to find or craft a good rare and then add one influence modifier to it. So if you're a person who usually uses an item with one, maybe two influence mods, low tier because, you're not farming Cyrus and tier 16 conquerors, like this feels very close to a strict buff to me. Um, but
It
at
depends
the end
on
of the day,
it depends
yeah,
on
it
the
depends on the
pool.
mods. But from what we've seen, they look pretty impressive. To me, they look like pretty much the mods that are currently just affixes on your gear are now implicits. So you just get two extra affixes, right? Like you get your two um, influenced affixes in addition to your five stat uh, rare. Like you probably on an average rare, right? You have like four good stats and then one crafted stat and one empty slot. Like that's a pretty good rare for
Yeah,
a casual player.
that'll get you
Um,
through the game. Hmm.
yeah, yeah. And then if you can add two implicits, even if they're 75% of the power of uh, what you could have gotten, because like we're not talking about elevated mods here, right? Like we're talking about casual players who've never seen a Maven Orb, right?
Yeah.
Uh, so I think that these are like huge boosts to that. But when you're talking about the end game juicers who are elevating mods and awakener orbing stuff, like these aren't going to come close.
You
When
think
you're
that
dealing with an
they will
go
still
ahead.
be using the awakened conquer influenced items? Yeah.
Yeah,
I suppose that's true,
like
right? Like, I can't imagine someone wanting to give up Tailwind, Elusive, Onslaught boots.
right. And I mean, honestly, maybe you can get two of those as
Oh my god,
implicits,
that would be
right?
so insane.
Right? But like maybe you can, right? Who
Yeah,
knows?
yeah.
Um, and then, if you can get two of those as implicits, then you can get onslaught on kill from a veiled chaos, and then, you're sitting
Yeah,
pretty.
yeah, you kind of have the
Uh,
same thing.
or you could do that with like can't be chilled boots with can't be frozen crafted on it. Like
Hmm.
that's gross. Um,
Yeah,
I feel like there's
I feel like the stream did not give me a good enough taste for what the mods actually are, because I think they just showed like a couple of helms.
they showed some gloves because they showed dot multi, and that's a glove mod.
Oh, okay. Yep.
It's also worth noting that it does not apply to, I don't think it's weapons, shields, or jewelry.
Hmm.
So all of that, you still want your Shaper, Elder, Hunter stuff, right? Like, uh, for all of your peripheral pieces, um, you still want a different kind of influence. So there's still going to be a big demand. And honestly, the demand is probably going to be higher because people aren't randomly dropping stuff anymore. Because there
Yeah.
aren't just random influence maps. Like you have to actually talk to Kirak and run your daily missions to get those maps, other than randomly dropping from bosses.
Yeah. Speaking of Kirak, those changes to how he sells you maps, I am really excited for that. I think
Yep.
that, if we're talking about endgame itemization, he is going to be a huge player in that, which kind of brings us to our next topic, which is about the
Yep.
Atlas. And specifically, maybe let's start talking. Let's start off with actual the mechanics changes. Overall, I think we both would say this is great. Regions were obnoxious. I hated feeling like I like heist, but I hate all of the maps where I can engage in heist. Man, this is good stuff.
Yeah,
Um,
I've got to say the favorite system feels so similar to the old Elder Orb, which I freaking loved,
yeah,
and I've hated that it's been gone for so long,
yeah,
and it really feels like if you actually kill Maven and Uber Elder, because the pinnacle bosses I think are, and even Maven honestly, are pretty like you're kind of sent straight into it, right? Like that's part of the campaign now.
hmm
Um, the post Kitava campaign. Um, but Uber Elder, like, that's a commitment, right? You gotta use, what is it, usually like 200 chaos for an Uber Elder set?
yeah,
That's a lot to commit to, like, maybe getting one Watchstone. So if you want your, I don't know what the low tier maps are, but like your beach, for example, to be your favorite tier 16, like, you gotta nut up.
yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's the kind of thing like the people who are really committed to running a single map, they will be able to run a single map. I am usually like I like this map, but I actually don't ever want to run one map over and over and over. Like I don't even understand how people could do tower farming over and over and over and over. Like it's a great map. I know, I mean, I don't think it's a great map.
Hard disagree.
It is a great map based on it's like a straight line, right? It's pretty linear. There's not a lot of backtracking, right? That's what I mean by linear. There's not a lot of backtracking. It's
There's a
certainly
lot
not
of
a straight line.
corners.
Yeah, it's got some corners. It's got like a lot of people like it for the nurse, right? It drops the nurse. Um, and is there one other div card it drops that's pretty good? It drops the wretched, I guess. A lot less good, but some people like I think the reason people like maps like that is it's more reliable, right? Like farming burial chambers, it was sort of like you cross your fingers that you get a doctor. I mean, it's not reliable, whereas patient or nurses drop so much more regularly. Like
Right.
you're able to kind of say like, okay, I know that if I put 4 hours in today, I'm gonna make 10x or whatever. Whereas
Also, Burial Chambers, the last few leagues, has been a very high tier map, and tower farming, I don't really know about last league, but like tower farming historically, to my knowledge, has been a low level magic farm,
yep,
magic
yeah, like
find farm.
tier
So,
2 or tier 3.
yeah,
Yeah,
so that's a pretty big difference as well.
and you do that with like, yeah, you do delirium and you do nem 3 if you can. Um, and beyond, and then you get all that juice that way. Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, overall, getting to choose a favorite map, I'm probably gonna choose like 3 or 4 different favorite maps, and just say these are the maps I want to run more. But I think in the video they said that if you have all of your maps favorited to the same map, over half of the maps that drop will be your favorite map, which is
So
great.
I've always liked switching it, right? Like you pick a div card that you want to finish a set of, right? So you set that map as your favorite, and then once you finish your set, you switch it to a different one.
Sure. Yeah, I guess
Plus, I
there's.
could live in alleyways all day if it was on the Atlas this time, which it isn't.
Oh, I haven't even looked at the actual maps there. Um, that's a good point, right? There's no opportunity cost for switching your favorite map, right? You just click, click,
Yep.
click. You don't have to pay regrets or orbs of unmaking. So certainly, yeah, you could farm up. Okay, I've got my map tab has this full of this map now. I guess I'll switch my favorite map.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a good point. What about the rest of customization? We'll talk about the tree, the actual Atlas passive tree in a little bit, but what else about the Atlas? Um,
Yeah. So, when I started playing, it wasn't really even an Atlas, right? Like they hadn't called it the Atlas yet. Uh, it was just maps, and you would do the maps, and you would get better maps, and then you would get to the highest tier of maps, and then you wouldn't sustain them, and then you would start over.
Oh yeah, yeah. Like it was like tier 8 was the highest, or tier 7, and those high
Yeah.
tier maps were,
At that
oh my
point, it
god,
was
they were.
item level, though, right? It was just like level 77 was
Yeah,
the
they didn't even
highest.
call them tiers.
Yeah.
It was just this is the
Uh,
level.
so, and that was back when I would crash anytime that it was raining. So,
Oh, those were the
back in
days.
the old days.
Yeah.
um, but yeah, it just feels like it's going to be so intuitive. I love the layout of just go up as opposed to like work your way out to the
Yeah.
corners and
Yep.
then start back in the middle and then
Yeah,
go,
and then
like
go
it's
back
just so
out
stupid.
again.
Like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it just you go up and it gets harder. That's
Hmm.
so clean and
Yeah.
beautiful,
I
and I
suppose
really appreciate that.
the void stones do kind of make that a little weird, right? Like you go up and then you get a void stone and then you go up again. Although I think the way that it works is you actually have natural reds.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah? And then so
You have
your first void
the
stone.
the Atlas has tier 16s on it with no void stones.
Okay.
So it is
So the
just choosing which tier 16s you want. That is all that void stones do. Is lets you get more tier 16s on there.
yeah, yeah, I was going to say it probably changes the scaling, right? So like
Hmm.
with no void stones you've got 1 through 16. With one void stone you have like 5 through 16. With
Yeah.
two void stones you have 8 through 16 probably.
Yep.
I guess I haven't really. I know
Yeah.
that it shows
There
it in the
there will be some
video.
sort of numbers, but
Yeah.
something along those lines is definitely what it seems to me to be.
Yeah.
Uh, and I think that that's pretty cool. I also feel like this system would feel bad without them pushing the favorite system so hard because, if you liked one of the tier 16s in the old system, you could remove watchstones and whatever and sustain
Yeah.
it pretty well. So if they didn't go commit pretty hard to it, you really wouldn't be able to sustain what you wanted. You'd be
That's
able to
true.
sustain tier 16s, but I mean,
Well,
they had to commit to it.
I also think they probably felt like there's no reason not to commit to it because having all of one map now makes literally no difference. You could make an argument in previous leagues that, well, if you're able to run the same map over and over and over with no opportunity cost, then everybody just runs like the best map, right? They pick the region that has the content that's the most lucrative, and they pick the map that has the best layout for engaging in that, and maybe the best div cards, and then everybody just does that. But now, because everyone, like, there are no regions, everyone is going to be able to engage with whatever content they want. Why not just let people run the map that they want? I mean, now the only difference is div cards.
Yeah, I mean, map layouts matter a lot for mechanics like Legion,
Oh, for sure. And I
and
recognize that like different maps have different densities, and map bosses are
they
a real thing.
they also have said in the past, I don't know if they have the data to back this up or not, but they have my impression of what they've said, I don't have an exact quote, was that Chris felt like if you are always running the same map, you're gonna burn out, and player retention is lower if you let them have perfect sustain at no cost, right? Um, I have not felt like that was true. Um, I'm trying to remember what league it was. It was like right after they patched out Elder Rings, but while it was still Elder Shaper, and I had Elder Orbed um, Lair, and I was just running Lair, and I played a long time in that league, whatever that was.
Yeah, that would have been a long time
Synthesis?
ago.
I think that was Synthesis.
That was a long time ago.
I
Are we like
liked Synthesis.
5 years out from Synthesis?
I don't
More
know.
than that? I don't know.
We old.
Yeah, we've been playing Path of Exile for a long time, that's for sure. And I'm still real bad.
That's
Um,
true. Kill Maven, scrub.
Maybe someday. Maybe when they get rid of the memory game, because that is a butt mechanic.
Log out. Or die, who cares?
Yeah,
I don't think I've ever had a deathless Maven because I died to the memory game at least
Yeah,
once.
I can't imagine fighting Maven in hardcore. Ugh.
Well, no, but they
Ugh.
just log out.
Yeah, I think you have to.
Yeah, you sometimes lose all your portals though, which sucks.
Yeah. Um. Okay, so let's talk tree. That's gonna be awesome.
Yeah,
I am
dude.
super stoked. I am a little bit worried that you have to get a bunch of crap before you get to things that are actually good. But generally, the way that it looks is it's kind of set up like the Atlas itself, right? Where you start down at the bottom and then you can like branch out, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 different directions.
Yep.
One of those is going to be something that I'm interested in, right?
I don't know if you looked at it, but someone on Reddit captioned all of them with what the symbols looked like.
Mm-hmm.
And um, I agreed with most of it, except that they wrote shrines with a question mark. It's domination, okay? Get it right. Uh,
Yeah.
so um, I felt like it was laid out really cleanly. Like the early stuff is pretty generic, like strong boxes and essences, and then the very top is all of your like aspirational Maven, and then red blue guys.
Okay.
So I felt like it was very clean and intuitive of like the early game, this is what you need because you don't care about Maven when you're doing tier ones, right?
Yep.
And it people have there was some point in the live stream where they cursored over a node while they were scrolling and accidentally spoiled it, or intentionally, I don't know.
Yeah.
But there's one where like some of the travel nodes give you chance to drop adjacent maps
Yeah.
from the boss. Um, so it sounds like that to me is kind of like saying that you have to slog through a bunch of crap on your passive tree to get to the nodes that you want. Sometimes that's true, but like they made it where the travel nodes matter and your pathing matters, right? If you decide that you want something in this corner and this corner, that might be difficult to pull off, right? You might need to do a lot of maps before you can do that. But if you're like, I want to focus on crafting early, then you can just be like, I'm going up this way. There's some betrayal here. There's some harvest here. There's some essences here. And I'm pretty happy with that. And then when I get up towards the top of the tree, I can, maybe take some of the boss nodes.
Sure. Yeah, I'm not trying to say like you gotta pick up a bunch of garbage, but I'm just really hoping, and based on even what they showed, like even the low level stuff feels like it will be impactful. And yes, travel nodes that are like, unique bosses have a 2% chance of dropping an adjacent map. Like if that's a travel node, you'll pick up 10 of those, and I mean a 20% chance of dropping an adjacent map is a big deal in terms of getting you through the Atlas, for sure. I just meant, like, I don't want to have to pick up, like, if there's a notable very low that is just basically a worse version of a notable that's further up, like, that feels bad.
I can't imagine that will be the case. Like they have so few. Like any given league mechanic will only have like 3 clusters, right? So like there might be multiple notables within there, but I feel like when I was looking at it, it looked like any given league mechanic had maybe 2 or 3 clusters. And so if you only have like 6 notables, then like that feels like it would be really lazy on their part to be like, here's this +1, here's
Yeah.
this +2. Like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
if there is one thing that I trust GGG beyond a doubt in, it is passive trees. They know what they're doing. They are good at that. They
They-
never screw that up.
yeah,
Except for maybe aesthetically with like Shadow Start.
yeah, they do make a good passive tree. That is true.
So I have zero concerns that passive tree will have the issue that you're referring to. There might be other issues, like balance is really hard with those, especially with like the million of us trying to break it. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah, Chris was right when he said on stream, he's like, there's like a handful of devs and they're smart, but there's like, a million players.
yeah.
And so it's
They
very
may be
difficult.
dumb, but they'll find it.
Yeah, and it's very difficult to come across every edge case that every player is going to going to encounter. Yeah. I mean, the times that I've had weird issues with Path of Exile, I'm always like, yeah, I can understand that this is like not something that happens a lot. Like, I am this class and I'm using this skill with this support, and doing it this way causes this crash. And then it's like, oh yeah, it turns out like that's a graphics card issue. Like, okay.
Yeah, I feel like almost every issue that I've run into in Path has just been my hardware can't keep up.
Yeah.
Or my internet. My internet's pretty bad.
Well, your hardware's better now, right? Than
I
it
mean,
used
better
to
than
be.
when I was on a laptop.
Yeah, better than when you crashed in rain.
Yeah. The rain is better also, though, right? Like, I don't know if they had the current rain back then, if I would have crashed in rain.
That's true. They have done a lot of performance improvements.
The performance improvements always go so unappreciated as well, I feel. Like, every patch they're improving stuff. And sometimes something gets messed up and everything's bad, and then everyone's like, oh, this is the worst. But, like,
Oh
if
yeah,
you,
like in
like,
Delirium, didn't like that's when they rolled out Vulcan, and it was just balls.
yeah,
It was so
maybe.
bad.
I didn't play Delirium, because I hate those mechanics.
Well, yeah. One thing I want to talk about then before we get into Arch Nemesis, what are your thoughts on the Awakened Gem stuff moving into Maven? We did touch on it a little bit. Moving that from Conquerors to Maven and Invitations.
Yeah, so, Conquerors suck and are not fun, so that's tight, I guess. I kind of hope that there's a Conqueror invitation now.
That would be
Because
cool.
they said that you can witness them, so might as well do it if you can balance it. But also maybe don't do that because Conquerors suck. And it would be hard to make a good arena to have all four of them. They have so many ground effects and so much stupid stuff.
Yeah, like how would it even work with like Veritania's like vortex that slowly gets
You just wouldn't
smaller?
have that.
Oh, I'd love that. That'd make them so much easier.
Yeah, great. Let's put Veritania's vortex and then Alhazbin's poison pool in the middle of it. That sounds really good. And then the
with Baron
slams coming
Ruins.
in.
Yeah.
That sounds
and
super.
Drox flags making them all invulnerable.
Yep. Oh god. Drox flags. I hate Drox.
I do too. Yeah.
The one advantage to Drox is that he's the one that if you have decent damage and survivability, you can just stand there and ignore everything else.
Yep.
That is the only good thing. I hate all of the Conquerors. I like all the Elder Guardians and the Shaper Guardians so much better than any of the Conquerors. Veritania's okay. I just hate that if you mess up on the stupid spinny thing in the vortex with all of our tornadoes, then you just get one shot by it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not one shot, but because you get hit a million times in a row, but it feels like a one shot.
Yeah. I think I agree. I think I really don't like the Conquerors. I think the fights are really well designed. In terms of like they all feel really different, and they do all like they feel like a boss fight. You know, you have an arena, and the arena is kind of like part of the fight. You know, it's not just like Maven Invitations. To me, it's like it's an arena. It's an arena so that you have a place to fight. But the arena...
but like, how are you gonna balance making a real arena with any map bosses combined? It has to just be a ring.
I know. I'm just saying, like, I like that the Conquerors feel like a cohesive boss fight. Maven Invitations, they feel like exactly what they are. They're a total cluster of, you know, like 3 to 10 bosses, or what, 4 to 10 boss. It's 3. It starts at 3, right? 3.
I don't remember.
4, 5, 6, 10. Yeah, so it must start with 3.
I believe you.
It's a cluster. You know, and you're right. They can't have a meaningful arena when you're fighting random map bosses. But I do like it when the arena matters. Shaper and Elder arena doesn't matter.
Wait, you're saying that the arenas on The Conqueror's Matter? Baron's Arena?
Well, like
It's a square.
Yeah, but the square is divided up into the areas that can turn into runes.
He just casts it, so you can just see the grid.
Yeah, but it's the squares that are on the ground. It's not like the
but
squares are randomly placed. It's part of the arena. That's what I mean.
sure, but like even
And
if they
like,
didn't have them drawn, the mechanic would work the same. It's just to make it easier to see where he's going to do his thing.
I know, but like, it's better than not having it there. And to me, at least, that makes it feel like a battleground that matters. Whatever. That's not the point. I wonder if I'll actually get an Awakened Gem. I don't think I've ever had an Awakened Gem drop.
What? There's no way that that's true.
Yep, I've never had an Awakened Gem or a Conqueror Exalt drop. And I have done a lot of red tier Conquerors. Never gotten a single one.
I think you're wrong. Might be right. I've gotten a lot of Awakened Gems.
I mean, if I've gotten any, I don't remember. I might have gotten like one of the really garbage ones.
Yeah. There are no garbage ones.
I mean, they're all strictly better than the support gem themselves, but like there are garbage support gems, so there are garbage Awakened Gems.
Not every support gem has an Awakened version, though.
I know.
I can't think of a bad Awakened gem.
Like, I don't know. I'd have to look at a list, but I know that there are some.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of them are just like, okay, so here's the level 20 version, but now it goes up an extra, like, 3%.
Yeah, I mean, certainly there are Awakened gems that aren't necessarily that impressive compared to their counterpart, but like, if people are already using that counterpart, then it's still a good gem.
Yeah. I don't disagree with you.
It's not like there's an Awakened Blind.
You know, that could
That
actually
would be bad.
That could actually do something interesting, though. I mean, I do think blind and chance to flee and life gain on hit and knockback and stun, like, they could make those good. They just don't.
Yeah.
Like,
They would just make number go up, though.
No. Blind could do something like chance to blind, and then like supported skills deal more damage to blinded enemies, or enemies blinded by supported skills deal less damage, or it could be skills not supported by blind deal increased damage to blinded enemies. I don't know, something like that. Although that would be kind of lame.
It's a wall of text.
Whatever. I'm just spitballing, right? Like, they could add mechanics to those super underused gems, and they just don't.
Speaking of things not supported by this, though, how do you feel about the new mark on hit support?
It's gonna be insane.
Dude.
It's gonna be absolutely insane. Like,
That's my league starter.
Yeah. Every build is just gonna use a mark.
No, my build is going to use all of the marks.
Can you do that?
It's just, they're curses. They're set by curse limit.
Yeah, you have to have, like, what,
Plus max.
You'd want four curses?
Well, Warlord's Mark still sucks.
Okay, so you'll use assassins, snipers, and poachers?
Mm-hmm. And Deadeye gets 75%.
Yep, 75% effect.
That's so good. Oh my god.
Yeah, that is cool. Yeah.
And you only need a 4-link because the one support gem will trigger all of them in sequence.
Yep.
And they have unlimited duration, so you don't even need to hit Paragon.
Yeah. Yeah, they did something too. Oh, well, they just made them infinite duration. That was the only significant change. You can still only have one enemy marked at a time.
Yep.
But they fall off when the enemy dies, and they have infinite duration. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that's basically perma uptime.
Especially when they give charge on kill.
Yeah.
Like, it's pretty spicy.
I mean, that is really cool. I do think that just every character is going to run one. I mean,
Every attack character.
yeah, like I guess I like it because it really did feel mandatory to either have a mark on hit or curse on hit ring. And I really like that having that just as a gem means that, okay, now I can use any ring that I want. The opportunity cost is 2 sockets.
Plus, not every build wants a mark, right? Like Essence Drain Contagion doesn't want a mark.
Yeah, they probably wanted Despair on hit or something like that. And I do think there's still going to be a place for like curse on hit rings and even mark on hit.
Mark on hit is getting deleted from rings.
Oh,
those mods are
so
going
the
away.
Shaper and Elder. Okay, all right. So then there's still a place for curse on hit. But I do think then, especially because curse on hit is what you can still get it in Delve, presumably.
Well, curse on hit is staying. Mark on hit is going.
Yeah, I know. I'm saying, but like, so curse on hit is in Delve and then Conqueror Jewelry. So theoretically, you can get them before level 68, but pretty unlikely. Which really means
Like Delve before 68. Barf.
Yeah, I know. Players will probably just be using mark on hit for campaign and then maybe transition.
I mean, if you're a caster, you're not. Mark on hit is on attack only.
Yep. Yeah, I do remember seeing that.
It's a big deal.
Well, then a caster just doesn't have it. They're either manually cursing or they're getting like Mark of Submission or something else. Right? The ring is Mark of Submission.
Probably.
It's the ring that applies the curse.
I know what you're talking about. I don't know names.
Okay.
My loot filter knows the names. I don't need to know the names.
Who needs to? Yeah. I do like that change. I think the mark on hit support is going to be very, very dominant. Like I think that will be, every attack character is just going to use it, unless they can find some other way of avoiding that. But it's super strong. I don't even know, is there going to be any cost associated with it? Is there going to be a reservation? Is it going to cost mana when it triggers?
Yeah, everything that's triggered costs mana now. Remember?
I suppose. Yeah, I guess even the rings. No, the ring. Yeah, the rings did.
The curses
didn't.
Did. The marks. One of the two did, one of the two didn't.
I think the marks did cost mana, because the marks
because it triggers it.
But the curse applies or something like that, right?
Yeah. So like gloves are the same way, where they just apply on hit, so they don't cost
it
mana.
Actually, it's not a trigger.
Right.
And since marks only apply to one enemy anyways, it's fine to trigger it. Okay, so it'll cost a little bit of mana, but because you can only have one enemy marked at a time, it's whatever.
It'll still trigger every time that you hit.
So maybe there's something there in terms of mitigating that mana cost.
But it's also an unlinked thing, right? Like
so it just costs.
There's just the one link. I mean, I imagine that the support will have like a 250% multiplier or something, because they love to do that.
Yeah, they do.
But all right, so Arch Nemesis.
Yeah,
what?
Arch Nemesis.
That's the new league.
It is. I mean, like I said at the start, anything that gives us agency, I am a big fan of, and so by default, I am a fan of Arch Nemesis.
I understand why we have to pick stuff up. This just feels like a league that should have been auto loot. Like, I just can't get behind things where you gotta click a bunch.
I think Chris's explanation really does make sense, right? Like,
I agree.
Late game, you're not gonna pick up, toxic, right? You're not gonna pick up the tier 1 things that you don't care about anymore. But
so
I don't understand why they think that there's like some exciting like decision making about which ones you're keeping and which ones you're not. I agree that it should just be auto pickup and you should be able to store infinite of all of them.
Right.
Who cares?
They should just stack in the window.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if they would have stuck to their original guns and been like, this is a 5x5 and you have to choose, then there's a real argument. They're like, you have to actually make decisions about which ones you want to keep and which ones you want to get rid of. Um, then that's valid. But if they're making the window big enough where you're realistically keeping everything anyway,
Yeah.
that just seems dumb. Like, just let us freaking. And I don't know if you caught this, but he was saying that you have to manually put them in the window. You don't just click it and it picks up. You have to click it and then click where you want it in your window.
Oh, so you click it on the ground and it opens the
Yup.
interface?
Yup.
No, don't do that to me, Chris.
That's how I interpreted it. That could be wrong, but he said you're going to like put your rares somewhere that you can see them clearly. Now maybe it auto picks it up and then
And
you
then
can
you
move
can
it within your
rearrange
thing
it. Yeah.
later, but do you trust them to preemptively get rid of clicks? Because I don't. I think they love giving you clicks. It
They
gives it
do.
weight, DJ. When you got to choose where you're putting it, so much weight.
Yeah. Feel the
I
weight.
trust them on passive trees. I do not trust them on clicks.
That's fair. I mean, yeah, it's difficult because I do understand the argument Chris put forth. I really do.
Definitely.
And I think that, if someone is hoarding more than 64, like, bro, just use them. But then, if you're gonna allow people to hoard 64, why even bother? I do think, though, like, a 25 slot window for that, then you're getting into synthesis territory, and man, was that obnoxious. Like, I can only hold 10 pieces at a time? Come on. Nobody
Yes,
liked that.
I agree, except that you can see exactly what's going to be happening. And, like, it's not like in synthesis where bad pieces. Like, in synthesis, there are some less useful pieces, right? Maybe you don't want a right turn, you want a triple or a quadruple, right? You just only want the four ways if possible, but you can use all the other ones, right? They're still fine. Whereas with this, you know, you just don't pick it up, right? In synthesis, you cleared it and then you got it,
Yeah, and you'd have to, like, go in and trash it or whatever if you really
right?
didn't want
With
it.
this, assumingly you can just drag them out of your inventory as well, and because of the system that's in it, and it's showing you which pieces you want, it, like which combinations actually do something. Um, I think that it will lead you to realizing that you are done with things really early, so then you can filter them out. But anything that is not tradable should be auto loot, in my opinion.
Yeah. But I think, the flip side is this exact case where there's going to be things that you don't want. But then
There's no
it's sort of
downside
like,
to auto looting with infinite inventory,
yeah,
though.
if there's auto loot, there has to be infinite inventory.
I think that given that they feel the need for there to be a maximum inventory, I think that it makes sense that it's not auto loot. But I think that there is no good argument in a game with so many complaints about clicking and valid complaints about clicking to not just make it infinite inventory, right? Like,
It's
there
just
have
one of
been
those.
every league that they try to justify it, they just end up having to revert it later. Metamorph, Expedition, like anytime that it could be auto pickup, it just should be, and they just need to accept that.
Yeah, I will agree with that. I mean, it's one of those weird things that GGG just feels like they have to stick to their guns at this point. It's as if, like, clicks. This isn't BuzzFeed. Like, clicks don't matter. I'm already playing your game. You don't need to, like, every time I click, GGG does not get, like, 5 cents of revenue.
Right.
So, yeah, I do agree in that regard. They really need to reduce that level of tedium, and I think it seems like every time we take a step forward, there's another time where we take a step back. And I'm really hoping that we're both wrong. And I hope that this league feels good. You know, if it is only 2 clicks per area, okay, whatever. But over the course of the game, I mean, why? It's only 2 clicks per area, but if I didn't need to click in the first place, like, I don't know.
Yeah.
No, yeah.
Like, yeah, it's tough. Like, 2 clicks per area doesn't sound that serious, but when is the last time that they said 2 clicks per area and it was true?
Yeah. I mean, even in Harvest, right? That was what? Between 2 and 4? 2 and 5 clicks per area?
3 and 6, because you had to click on the seed to pop it open.
The cache too, yeah. Okay, well, so this is fewer clicks than that, but Harvest suffered from that amount of tedium as well.
Harvest, you also had to set up the whole garden.
That was a number of clicks. Yes.
Given that was a flat number, right? Like, it didn't scale with how much you were doing. I guess if you weren't tryharding, then you didn't need to do as much with your garden, but...
Yeah. That's true. I do really like the idea of combining those Arch Nemesis mods. I think that will really help the longevity of the system. Yep. And it will definitely make it feel more Path of Exile-y, right? Like you are building up to some, culminating reward.
So, I do agree, but I also feel like because it's going to be in an inventory window, I'm absolutely at some point, probably multiple times, going to misclick and use one of my good ones when I didn't mean to, or accidentally put in a bad one when I needed to put in a good one. That one seems less likely because when they're all shaded, it should be fine. But like when I'm just like trying to figure stuff out, I can easily see myself accidentally putting in a good one that I didn't mean to.
Well, I think going into it too, it's going to be really hard initially. It will be very obvious. I mean, something like Innocence that's triple currency rewards and converts everything to currency, like that's very obviously good. But going into it, it's going to be like, who knows what's a good one and a bad one. Like, I think there are going to be some that are really subtly good. And there are going to be some that seem to be really good but are actually really bad.
Even if it's like the triple jewelry, right? Like they were saying that you can take the triple jewelry and it's good with that Innocence one. So maybe you want to save at least one of those because most rewards only give you one thing.
Yeah.
So,
well, and it could also be like in everything. I mean, maybe the armor or weapons ones, once you get into maps, those are normally garbage. But if it's more like a heist weapon or armor thing where you're getting like 5 link 6 sockets, or you're getting a lot of like synthesized bases or fractured bases, like if they increase the frequency of that type of reward, you might actually want to be, especially in SSF, you might want to be running like triple armor rewards just because you're like, dude, I really need a 6 link. I really need a 6 link. My gut says that they're just going to be terrible, so they're not going to use like the heist level of frequency drops. But who knows, right? Like it's really hard to say until we really start engaging with that system. But I really like things that you sort of like combine, especially because this is like you use it and it's a reward. It's not like you're just using it to combine to this next thing. Like, it's a reward, and then when you combine the rewards the right way, the enemy drops this next level of Arch Nemesis mod. I think that's going to feel really good, and I think it's going to feel really satisfying to kind of, like, climb those steps up to some of the really good rewards later on.
One of the things that I like about it having 64 is that it feels more similar to Heist, which I loved, how I could just take a day of mapping and then take a day of Heist and not do the league mechanic every single map, right?
Yeah.
Like, I get burnt out on League mechanics doing it every single map. Like, and there are some League mechanics that I just don't engage with. Like, I think that you know that I skip Delirium
Hmm.
mirrors, because they just don't feel like the level of gear that you need in order for it to feel rewarding is so hot.
Yeah,
Like,
you got to be
I
really
feel
fast and you
like
got to kill really fast.
I feel like I can do Wave 20 Simulacrum more easily than clearing a Tier 16 Delirious map. Because, like, in the Delirious map, you feel like you have to be sprinting or the thing catches up
Yeah,
to you, whereas
yeah,
in
you can't
Simulacrum, at
stop.
least you can take your time.
Yep,
And I play slow characters, you know that,
you tend to certainly.
these days.
Yeah, and comparatively, I would say you play slow characters. Like,
Compared to what you need to clear Tier 16 Delirious
yes,
maps.
yes, yes.
Trappers don't do that so well. Explosive
Yeah,
trappers.
yeah. We're not talking good traps here, folks.
What do you mean? Explosive trap's the best trap.
Oh, I forgot. I guess a couple of leagues ago, explosive trap. I mean, it
When
still
I
is
did it,
very
it was
good.
definitely the best trap, and this league it's going to be the best trap. It
Why do
got a
you say that?
huge buff.
I didn't. I didn't pay attention to that.
And Exsanguinate got dumpstered.
Yeah.
It deals like half as much damage as a trap now. So Explosive Trap is going to be what they pair with Seismic.
Well, it won't be for the Cold Iron Point build. You won't use explosive trap with Cold Iron Point.
No. But it would still deal just as much damage as Exsanguinate.
I suppose that's true. If Exsanguinate does half the damage, explosive trap still does the same amount. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that the endgame version was already converting, though, to
Yeah.
fire.
Well, so if we're
I
gonna
could be wrong,
if
'cause
we're
I
gonna
didn't
start
follow it.
talking about stuff like that, is there anything in particular in terms of patch notes? Because we've talked about Siege of the Atlas, we've talked a little bit about Arch Nemesis. Anything else you want to say about Arch Nemesis? I'm curious if there's going to be a pinnacle fight in Arch Nemesis.
No, there's no way.
I could totally see like some of those higher tier things.
Nope. They would never put a pinnacle boss in something like this while releasing an expansion. There's just too much that they have to do to make a real boss.
Yeah, I suppose that's fair. I
Like they might
wonder.
have started working on it, but like to me this is Metamorph 2.0 and they still haven't put a pinnacle boss into Metamorph even though all of the dialogue says that there's supposed to be
Yeah,
one.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
I
yeah.
think that they probably learned their lesson and they were just like, nope.
Yeah, why
This is
bother?
the arch nemesis.
Yeah.
Fight it.
Well, okay, so let's talk patch notes. 317. Where should we start? We've talked about Siege of the Atlas. We've talked about Arch Nemesis. Um,
Add those.
Duelist Audio.
Yeah,
About
it's
time.
good. It's weird that they're adding it with Path of Exile 2 on the horizon. Uh,
Yeah,
so
taking that
it's a weird
development time
choice.
when it just won't matter in a little bit. Although I suppose, again, like you'll still be able to play PoE 1. So who
Yeah.
knows? Maybe they want to have PoE 1 polished enough by PoE 2 so like they just don't have to touch it anymore. I mean, really that's what's
Right.
going to happen.
Yeah.
Right? If they don't have all the dialogue in by the time PoE 2 starts, it's not going in.
I mean, I think that that is the case, right? Like they are upping the difficulty of the acts again and adding the dialogue because they did that with somebody else recently as well, right? Templar they added or something dialogue
Yeah.
for.
Yeah,
So
something
it's
like that.
fine. Like it's better than not doing it, right? But like unless it's Scion, Scion talks too much, and they shouldn't add more Scion dialogue. Sick of that.
I just hate how like I hate her mannerisms in speech.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um We talked about Conquerors.
I guess hand casting and bow buffs.
Oh, I'm actually really happy to see I think the hand casting buff is kind of whatever, because really I think it still results in. I saw Riot Freak.
Yep.
I saw his analysis on this, and it's actually a little bit of an overall buff, even with
Almost
traps
everything.
and totems and whatever. It certainly makes hand casting more attractive, but like if I can use a totem and I'm still doing like 7% more damage than I was last league, why would I hand cast? I'm still doing more damage than last league.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, I think that it's a buff to the implicitly hand cast builds like Frostbolt Ice Nova. Like that got a pretty significant
oh,
buff
for sure.
because you don't need your Frostbolts to deal very much damage. So
Mm-hmm.
losing the jewels and not getting cluster jewels is not the cluster jewels, the threshold jewels
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
isn't that bad because it's just to enable your thing.
Mm-hmm.
And all that stuff. So like that got a buff. I think a lot of builds that do ignite ended up being the same or a little bit better, except for the like strict ignite stuff. Um, Scrolling through to see if anything else seems cool. There was one other one that I thought looked good. I thought.
How do you feel about Detonate Dead changes?
Detonate Dead is such a weird skill. I remember when we first started playing, it was such a meme to be like, I'm gonna play Detonate Dead because
Yep.
it's so terrible.
Yep.
And then like, when I saw people making build guides for it a few like years ago now, I was like, what the hell is this?
Yeah.
So I think that it's cool that it had time in the sun. I would rather see Detonate Dead than Volatile Dead. Um, I would love it if they would just remove the freaking Spectre interaction because I thought about playing Detonate Dead and I will never do it as long as you have to raise a Spectre. I'm
Yeah.
glad that they made it a lot like more even across the board for Spectres, even though that's a nerf, like a pretty significant nerf. Um, like half your damage nerf. But I don't care because I would never use the Spectres anyway, so as far as I'm
Yeah.
concerned, it's a dead skill.
One skill I'm really excited about a buff is Absolution.
Yeah,
Absolution got a pretty sizable buff, and I've played Absolution. I played that in Endless Delve, and it felt good. I mean, I got to at least 70. I might have even gotten to 80 in Endless Delve, and Absolution was great. I mean, once you're up and running, you can kind of just zoom through, and that got like a 50% damage buff.
Yeah. Oh,
Like,
my favorite nerf is Battle Mage's Cry. Like the worst thing ever, and they nerfed it by
yeah.
the same percentage as everything else. Like putting it in the same category as Cast on Crit is just hilarious.
Yeah. Yeah,
But yeah, Absolution
yeah.
sounds like it's probably pretty good.
Yeah. I really, really liked using Absolution, and I always feel like any Fizz spell always has a lot of opportunities to be really good because you can... there's just so many ways to scale that. You know,
Right.
in addition to all of your spell damage stuff, it scales with physical damage, it scales with added as... you know, you don't really have to worry about enemy resistances if you're doing like a Fizz spell, if you want to be pure Fizz. A lot of good stuff there. Are
I
there
also
any...
think that it's hilarious that Discharge is up to 600% damage effectiveness.
Yep.
That's pretty tight.
I mean, Discharge is one of those things, like, it either requires too much setup, and as the game gets faster and faster and faster, like, you can't do manual discharge anymore. Like, you're either automating your discharge or you're automating your charges in some capacity. Yeah, I mean, gosh, that damage looks totally bonkers.
I just feel like at some point, if they keep buffing Discharge, there's gonna be like a Resolute Techniques Romira's using the Threshold Jewel that slashes its damage, and you're still just gonna like flat damage stack
Yeah.
it and use one charge and just blasted, blasted, blast.
Well, I mean, it's now up to. I'm looking at it right now, and it looks like it's like 12 or 1300 damage per charge at level 20.
Yeah, it's pretty
Like
crazy.
with 2 charges, that's more damage than most spells do.
Yeah, it might be more than any spell at 2 charges, but it does have a pretty significant cooldown.
Yeah. What is it, like 2 seconds or something like that? 3 seconds?
It's somewhere in that range.
Yeah.
I haven't played it in a while. I did play an Ignite discharge build a couple times, and I thought they were really fun.
Yeah.
But that was when you could use Second Wind, and it was actually good.
Yeah. I mean, it tends to be an Ignite build. Feel good. I think if you're playing discharge, it's an Ignite build. Even if you're not doing endurance charges, you are like Elementalist, Shaper of Flames, or something like that. Are there any other skills that you're really excited about in terms of the buffs?
For the buffs, for me, it was really just Frostbolt, Ice Nova. I've heard other people talking about other things, but I haven't played them enough to feel very strongly about it. I just feel like almost everything that got buffed, like you were saying, still just feels like there's a big Winter Orb buff. It now has 150% more projectile frequency, but that's still a totem build.
Yeah.
Like, right? You're not handcasting that, so who cares?
Yeah.
And God, that's still probably worse than it would have been last league because the chess piece got deleted. Soul Mantle.
Oh yeah, gosh. I think that is probably the biggest blow to totem builds because now
spell totems.
You've got 3?
Yeah.
3
No,
totems?
everybody uses the multi-totem.
Well, I think now you have to use multi-totem.
They were doing it before. Every totem build that I've played since they took it off of Hierophant, you just play it because otherwise it's uncomfortable.
I guess that does make sense. What else? Yeah, I agree. You know, like we had said, the buffs don't really change anything in terms of what I actually want to be casting.
Orb of Storms might be the exception. Orb of Storms damage looks pretty good.
I used Orb of Storms as a significant damage buff a couple of leagues ago.
Yeah, it's even worse as a main skill now on a couple of accesses. Like, it hasn't been able to be a main skill since they made Tempest Shield a reservation. But as a support skill, like, if you're cool with using a staff or like a super expensive helmet, like, seems like there might be something there to me.
Yeah, I think that mechanic change for Orb of Storms is certainly bigger than just a damage buff.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember what I used it with, but I wound up calculating my DPS with Orb of Storms and my main skill, and Orb of Storms was like 60 or 70% of my main skill's damage, and I was using Orb of Storms as like a curse on hit. It's like I didn't even.
Yeah, but your builds always suck.
I didn't even have anything really linked to it, but it did a lot of damage.
I mean, it might be a like nice, almost crutch for things like Spark that have just no single target, right? You might be able to make a Sparker that just, when you're fighting a boss, you just drop an Orb of Storms.
And I mean, you still do get the Hydrosphere interaction. I think the Hydrosphere just got changed, so it has a longer cooldown in between times it can change.
Yeah, it's a second.
I mean, that's still... You're getting 1 extra hit in every second.
That's terrible.
I mean, it's something. It also applies exposure.
Yeah.
So, like, if you don't have another source of exposure, I've used Hydrosphere a number of times, actually,
I think that Hydrosphere is still fine, but I think that it is mostly reasonable to say that interaction is dead.
Okay. I'll agree with you.
And for good reason. That mechanic needed to get functionally deleted, right? I understand the argument that it was good, uh, but I tend to disagree. I tend to feel that having to balance the entire game around it um, is just not realistic
Yeah.
for Path of
I'll
Exile.
have to play with it. My understanding is it is just the chaining that changed, but it's still like it pulses a lot. Um,
Yeah, but people didn't do hit damage off of it. They did. It doubled your
their
damage
yeah
on
their
single
prods
target.
change. I mean, when I was playing it with, I think I was using that with Ellie Hit. That was on my Ellie Hit build, and man, that did a lot of damage.
Yeah.
But that might have been because it was chaining off of it. I don't know.
Turns out doubling your damage is pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, do you
Okay.
have any thoughts on your league starter? You do an absolution?
Um, I was looking at is it some of the traps, some of the individual traps that got buffed?
Ooh. Yeah, do an ice trap.
I mean, Ice Trap does a lot of damage.
I thought ice trap was your favorite trap.
Ice Trap is the coolest trap.
Coolest looking.
Yeah,
It does have a nice MTX.
yeah. I don't know. I guess I still need to think about that, and I need to think about how I'm going to be playing. Do I want to play Trade League, and do I want to get one of the end game jewels to give me a different ascendancy point? Like, because I really do think if that is something I want to gun for, choosing a starter where that's going to be achievable is a consideration.
Yeah, but I think that basically just means don't play a Templar.
Why?
Because I looked through the nodes, and Templars have crap. They're all so niche.
Yeah, I suppose that's true.
So, Inevitable Judgment, which is crits penetrate,
Mm-hmm.
is the only really good Inquisitor node,
Yeah.
right? And Conviction of Power, which is the 4 base endurance and power charges,
Mm-hmm.
is like far and away the best Hierophant node.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Guardian nodes are just like weird given what the other options are, right?
Yeah.
You maybe take the block or the you share charges nodes, but
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's certainly. Yeah, I suppose that's true. I mean, theoretically
don't play
though,
a
then
Templar.
that means like you could go Templar, and if you found some really wonky build, like you're playing some weird mana Guardian or even a mana Hierophant, then you could say like I'm doing crit Archmage, and then you could get Inevitable Judgment.
Yeah, but
as
like
your-
Inevitable Judgment, every totem build wants, right? Every
Yeah.
totem Hierophant wants it. So those are the
Yeah,
ones that
so
are going
it'll
to be
be-
expensive.
Yep, it'll be
So you need
expensive.
to be like, all right, I am going to make an Inquisitor that wants a crit Absolution Inquisitor, so I'm going to get Radiant Crusade or
Yeah.
Unwavering Crusade on my
Yeah,
freaking
yeah. That's fair.
Inquisitor. And like that's just probably trash, right?
Yeah. Well, that's a good
Um,
point.
I guess you could maybe make some sort of an argument for Divine Guidance, which is Transfiguration of Mind and mana stacking stuff, and make an Inquisitor that way, but that's also probably going to be worth I just like you want things where they have other good options, which is why playing a duelist seems like such a good idea for that, because
yeah.
it
Where,
doesn't
where
feel
any option
realistic
is good.
that every single duelist jewel is expensive, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like Ranger is the same way, where like most Pathfinder nodes are pretty good, right? For just anybody.
Yep.
Like Pathfinder is kind of boring because all of its nodes are just good. And Raider is the same way. Raider is boring as heck. And any Raider node is absolutely worth 2 jewel sockets. So that's what I like about the Deadeye, is like, um, man, if I could just get Onslaught, what I really want is phasing, honestly, which isn't even like that insane. It's phasing and 40% chance to suppress spells damage. I feel like that's going to be something that's achievable because most people are getting 100% spell suppression just off of gear at
Yeah.
the top end.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure. Well, I mean, when evasion bases can roll at like 30,
yeah,
you can
it's
just get
crazy.
30% spell suppression on your boots or whatever. Like, it gets pretty nuts.
Yeah.
I'm really surprised. That is something. I'm really surprised spell suppression did not get some sort of nerf, even if it was just a numerical nerf in terms of the affixes.
Yeah.
Like, not even a
Yeah.
mechanical nerf.
Yeah. I'm surprised that the affixes on gear didn't get nerfed.
But like, I am also really surprised that the numbers on the tree didn't get buffed. Because in
Yeah.
comparison, like, you can get no spell suppression on the tree and still cap.
Yeah, pretty comfortably.
Like, you definitely have to go for it, but you need like 4 pieces of gear with spell suppression.
I mean, you do still want a little bit of spell suppression on the tree because you want the reduced like prevent extra damage, and you want some of the masteries, right? Like,
Yeah, so I mean, but I'm just saying you don't even have to. Like, you can not even be on the right side of the tree and still
right.
cap spell suppression if you want to.
Yeah, that's definitely true. That is a problem. I agree that they should shift it onto the tree for honestly the same reasons as why I like the new Atlas tree. Is like you should front load all of that stuff. You should let people get that stuff and
Mm-hmm.
make little edits to it with their gearing, not make gearing give you the entirety of spell suppression.
Yeah, like everyone should have equal access to that.
Right.
Um, yeah, I totally agree with
Uh,
that.
so how do you feel about the bow stuff?
Yeah, so bow stuff. I've always had a soft spot for bows. In a lot of ARPGs, I tend to enjoy playing ranged characters. I think it's a really comfortable play style.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, bows have felt bad for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I did in Endless Heist. I did play bow-based Ellie hit, and I really enjoyed that. I like playing a fast character. I like playing a ranged character. The buffs make me feel like there will be more things that are viable. Like I was going through everything and it felt like Ellie hit was really the only thing that did enough damage, and I could scale off of enough axes that was going to be achievable in Endless Heist SSF.
Right.
So I really like the changes. I'm hoping that they're enough. Personally, I don't really think pumping the base damage on bows really does anything. Changing the flat Ellie damage is nice, but then like you've just buffed that high end again. Like, I've always felt like tier 1 flat Ellie rolls you just don't really see.
Sure. They also buff the base damage of the bows themselves, though.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, I just don't think, unless you're going Fizz, does anyone go Fizz? Well, I guess, like, Bleed
I'm
Glad.
going fizz bows.
Really?
Yeah.
You're
I don't
gonna...
know if it's going to be bleed or impale yet, but
Interesting.
that's my league
So,
starter.
what's
It's
your
a
what's
Deadeye
your what's your
fizz
skill
bow.
gonna be?
It depends on if I go bleed or impale. So it'll
Okay.
either be a split arrow puncture or it'll be like rain of arrows barrage or split arrow barrage. Probably split arrow either way, and then barrage for single if I do impale. Cause split arrow with pierce and then call of steel seems sick.
Split arrow. Yeah. I mean, I've always liked Call of Steel.
Just whole screen blows up. That
Mm-hmm.
seems so tight. But like, I mean, uh, I just feel like as a Deadeye, if you can get, even ignoring Assassin's Mark, right? Like, if you get Poacher's Mark and Sniper's Mark as a Fizz bow build, that's just enough, right? Like, you could even switch over to Doomfletch if you wanted, right? Like, the Fizz, the minus to Fizz reduction on enemies doesn't apply, but 65 flat Fizz off of your mark, that's a lot of flat Fizz.
Yeah, yeah.
So let me just read you what you get with 3 marks with just the Deadeye mark scaling. 2.6 base crit, 85 crit multi, minus 35 Fizz reduction, 65 flat Fizz, 43 mana gained on hit. So that solves your mana issues.
Yeah.
They take 61% increased damage. So that's 61% more damage. And it splits towards 7 for everything that you hit it with.
Yeah. I mean, I agree that seems really sweet.
And like all of the bow bases got like a 40% more damage base.
Yes. Yeah, it's like between 40 and 50-ish, it kind of looks like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you are going Fizz, then that change to base damage makes a difference.
Yeah.
To me, man, I don't even know the last time I actually played a Fizz bow. Maybe when Reach of the Council double dipping was meta.
That was pretty sweet. I still have my like triple legacy Reach of the Council in standard.
Yeah, I think I have a double legacy one. Yours is like the really original good one.
Yeah.
And then I got one.
I don't even think it's good by today's standards, though. Although this base change might make it pretty good. 40% more damage is nothing to shake a stick at.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah. I'm a little disappointed that for all of these, they're focusing on hit-based bows, and they didn't change any of the hit-based bow skills.
What would you have liked to see?
I would have liked to see maybe a little buff to Ice Shot.
What?
Everyone uses Lightning Arrow.
Okay, well, that's just a functional thing, right? Like, they could double Ice Shot's damage, and people would still use Lightning Arrow instead, right? That's not a numbers issue.
Okay, well then I would have liked to see some sort of change to Ice Shot to make that slightly more usable.
No, dude, what you want is a nerf to Lightning Arrow.
What I want is hit-based bow skills to be slightly more in line with each other so that there's a reason to pick each of them.
And I'm saying that is only if they nerf Lightning Arrow. There's nothing that you can do to overcome the functions of a skill like that. Lightning Arrow and Tornado Shot will always be the best one.
Oh, that's lame.
Yeah, I don't disagree, but that's why nerfs are good. I'm not opposed to nerfing stuff that kills diversity on its own. But like,
neither here nor there, but I wonder how this is going to affect like ballista totems. Like, will anyone use ballista totems with these numerical changes to bases and itemization?
people are supposedly really excited about explosive arrow ballistas.
Yeah, I've also heard that that's going to be the it's
Like
going to be
clickbait
the number one trap of the whole league.
Yeah.
Is explosive
I don't
arrow
disagree.
ballistas.
But apparently people were playing it to success in the gauntlet, and that's usually a pretty good sign of this build's not trash, because you're just dead if your build is trash. But I don't know if they like geared it with a different character and then came back to it or what.
Yeah, I guess what I was reading the other day is that it's going to be a noob trap because there are so many moving parts.
Yeah, I'm sure that that's true. Remember when you league started Tornado Shot last league?
Yeah, I was gonna say that, but I didn't want to call that guy out because I don't think he had anticipated that. But the people that are pushing explosive arrow ballista, I think it's gonna be the same thing, right? Like people are gonna say, okay, I really want to play like an interesting build that's a little off meta, that is still going to clear all content and be a fun build, and they're going to start Explosive Arrow Ballista, and it's just going to turn out, oh, there are too many people playing Explosive Arrow Ballista, so all your stuff is super expensive, and you just can't make the build, and then people are going to say, oh, well, whatever. If this item that they recommend is 3 Exalts, I can get away with this. And it's like, you actually can't. You need that item. That's a cornerstone of the build. I've also heard that there are, like, attack speed breakpoints that really, really matter with Explosive Arrow. Or, you know, like with Seismic Trap, you wanted to get, I don't remember exactly what it was, but you wanted, like, 37% AoE exactly.
That's Toxic Rain.
No, it was true for Seismic Trap 2 previously. Like, you wanted some exact percentage.
There was a minimum percentage on Seismic, but going over it was just inefficient. It didn't make it worse. With Toxic Rain, it hurts your damage to go over.
Yeah.
But people who made the Seismic Trap build guides were bad at it because none of them said to scale duration, and none of them used all of their waves. They, like, all... Those nodes give you like 20% more damage, assuming that the enemy isn't moving.
Yeah.
So like against Cyrus and stuff, if you're boss farming, which is my understanding was the appeal of the build, people should have been investing in duration and should definitely invest in duration this league.
Sure. Yeah. God. Well, my only point is that I think I haven't even played Explosive Arrow, I don't think ever. I think I tried it out and I was like, yeah, I don't like this.
Yeah.
So it's hard for me to say, but just from what I've read and my experience last league with Tornado Shot Occultist, I do think this is going to be a noob trap.
Yeah. I agree.
I think I'm just going to go with something tried and true. I might do something as a bow build because I do like those changes. But I've played with all of the bow skills, really. So if
there is no tried and true bow skill, though.
Toxic Rain.
Toxic Rain may or may not be good because of the little patch note saying that enemies are going to now have an extra mod that is Chaos Resist.
Oh, yeah, there'll be like was it a Bloodline mod or something?
No, it's just like a general mod.
But, like, it has to show up on there.
It has to show up on their thing, but it's not like a Bloodline or a Nemesis mod. It's just like how sometimes they'll say like monster has lightning resist or monster has anything. The chaos is now in that pool, which it never was before because chaos damage was so rare. But now that it's become so common, they're adding it like any elemental resistance. And
well, so isn't that just
all
a
of those dot
change?
Skills? What?
Isn't that just a display change? Or are they actually adding chaos res?
They're actually adding.
Okay.
So for all of those dot skills, for those packs, you might need to spam instead of just pressing once and running. And that just makes them feel so terrible.
Yeah, I do agree with that. I mean, the other thing is then, like, I would play some sort of caster, because a ton of spells have gotten buffed, but then the reality is I probably don't hand cast. I mean, I guess I could, right? Maybe I do, like, some elementalist hand casting ignite, or, I don't know, something like that.
Emperor's Mark doesn't work for bleed, does it?
But I haven't decided. I'm going to do the typical thing and decide like the night before, and then regret my decision.
Yeah, I probably won't start until Saturday midday or evening, so I want to decide ahead of time.
Yeah, that's fair. Just so that you can really hit the ground running. I typically do want to play something that gets buffed, but I also typically want to play something that I haven't played in a long time. With all of the changes to spells, I'm going to need to look through those. I did like like we had said, the base damage changes to a lot of the traps. I would have actually played Holy Flame Totem if the buff to that would have been a little bit bigger. It's only like a 10% buff. Which I just don't think is sizable enough. It's still fine. I know that there are quite a few people that still just, they league start Holy Flame Totem and it takes you through the maps. But I would have wanted a little bit more damage.
One thing to consider, not that you should go off of this, but I've looked at a couple of polls of what classes people are league starting, and Chieftain has been at the bottom of a couple of them, and I think Chieftain's still pretty darn good.
I could see going the Slam Totems. Like, that's what I would do. Otherwise, I wonder if you could get away with one of the Fizz to Fire. How many Fizz to Fire convert spells are there, actually? I don't think there's a lot.
Explosive Trap, Purifying Flame, Holy Flame Totem.
Well, you can't have an Explosive Trap or a Holy Flame Totem. But you could self-cast that.
Yeah. But you said spells. There's a lot of attacks. You were talking about Slam Totems.
Well, I'm just saying, I'm looking at the spells that have seen some buffs, and I'm like, I was wondering if there were any Fizz to Fire conversions.
Right.
Man, Glacial Cascade getting a 50% buff. Whew.
Maybe instead of bows, I'll transition into doing Spectral Helix on a Deadeye. Because all of those stats seem real nice for Void Forge, and I love Void Forge, and it's always so cheap.
I played Spectral Helix. Man, I don't even remember what I did with that. That was in one of the Endless events.
Ooh, that sounds terrible for Endless events.
Oh, no.
Tight
It was
rooms.
Atlas Everywhere.
Oh, sure. I played Spectral Helix when I was doing some hardcore Soul Self-Found in Scourge, and I really liked it.
Yeah, it seems pretty good. I like that if you position yourself correctly, you can multi-hit.
Yeah. Also, Farshot from Deadeye scales it insanely. There's a helmet that gives Farshot, and it like doubles your damage. And all of the marks scale it really well. Base crit, crit multi, flat fizz, mana on hit, and take increased damage. Because I just realized that I'm an idiot, and Sniper's Mark doesn't help with bleed, so if I do bows, I have to go Impale, and I don't know if that will scale well early.
So now you're changing.
Still basically the same exact build, it's just two-handed weapons instead of...
Ooh, they gave a huge buff to Tornado. I could go Chieftain Tornado.
I mean, you could go Chieftain Fireball Ignite. Fireball got a huge buff.
Yeah. Although you wind up missing out. I mean, like, Chieftain to me is your either totems or your Fizz to Fire. And you can do it as a pure fire build, but I think you wind up missing out on some bonus.
No, you just go Ramako and Hinakora.
Yeah.
Maybe not even Hinakora. You take Volako and Tassalio.
Tassalio's like the worst one, right?
What? Tassalio is fire resistance and Fizz taken as fire.
Is it 10% Fizz taken as fire?
20%.
Okay.
And 20% increased life recovery rate. And unaffected by Ignite.
Yeah, unaffected by Ignite is kind of whatever.
Sure. I take Tassalio and Volako on every chieftain that I ever make.
Oh man, I take the ones that give you damage.
That's why you die and you can't kill bosses.
Nah. I haven't played Chieftain in a long time, but the last time I played Chieftain when I played Headhunter, so maybe you don't need that when you're playing Headhunter.
When you have Headhunter and you're running with a support, you probably don't need anything else.
Yeah.
But especially with the changes to armor, like getting as much forms of physical mitigation as you can makes your armor so good. So taking it as fire instead and taking that chunk out of it makes the armor so good.
That's true. Yeah, I do agree with that.
But you make bad builds, so I'm even telling you that.
Yeah. I don't know. I'll go through, I'll look at what's gotten changed, and, I mean, maybe I'll just say, I want to play a Chieftain Totem Slimy build, or I want to play an Ignite build or whatever. So who knows?
Ooh,
there's...
you know what I can do? Deadeye, and then get the Cyrus sword, the Savior, because Spectral Helix still gets your clones, and then they're shooting out Spectral Helixes.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds tight.
So, are you gonna play SSF or are you gonna be Trade League?
Oh, I'm definitely doing Trade League.
I think Savior will probably be more expensive than it is normally because people just won't be running Cyrus.
Yep, I agree.
But you go ahead and get your Paradoxica and your Savior.
I drop a Paradoxica most leagues.
Yeah?
Not a good one, but...
Not a good one, yeah. Well, is there anything else you want to talk about here? We've kind of gone over everything, and we're starting to get a little memey with what we're discussing.
Yeah, I think we're good.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think there's a lot to unpack. This video is actually quite a bit longer than I was expecting. I was thinking we would probably be an hour 15, and we're just over 2 hours. Not that that's a problem.
We're at about 2 hours, because we had that little bit of an issue at the startup.
Well, I mean, OBS tells me exactly how long we've been live.
Okay.
So it's 2 hours, 10 minutes.
Cool. Yeah. All right, well, you play your Pokemon.
And you do whatever it is you're going to do. Go grow some rice or something.
Yeah, I'll probably go hang out with my wife.
Oh, yeah, right. Cool. Rub it in, why don't you?
Hey, I've seen Jana in the camera a couple times, so I know
she exists. She does exist. There's not an imaginary person over there. They're real. All right. Well, again, Sully, thank you for joining. I appreciate you taking the time here to have this conversation. And anyone who happens to see this, I appreciate that you've sat through at least part of it.
Yeah, I can't imagine that anyone's still here.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be on Twitch. We'll see how many views I get, and I think I'm going to post it to YouTube as well. If you have any feedback for us, please let us know. I'm more than happy to hear your thoughts on anything that we've talked about, or even just how we have this set up. I know this was kind of off the cuff this time, not a lot of planning, but that's kind of how we wanted it. We wanted this to feel like we were just having a conversation, and we could certainly script every line, but that's not nearly as fun. So, yeah, feedback would be great. Otherwise, join us next time, and thank you so much. You wanna say goodbye, or do you hate everyone?
Both. So talk to you guys another time.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.